this for me is obviously a team that I follow each and every single day, and I think they have one of the more improved coaching staffs in the country in LSU. But 9.5 wins in the SEC with facing Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma. You're going to go to Arkansas. You're going to go to Texas A&M. You've got to go to Vegas to play USC. You've also welcomed UCLA to town. And Ralph, let's don't get this wrong. You got to, face the Fighting Major Applewhites there in September with South Alabama. So, bottom line for me, I think LSU is going to be a disappointment. Now, guys, you kind of look at the trend of what Brian Kelly has done in year 3 at every single stop. It has been a much talked about thing that in year 3 his teams make that jump. When he was at Cincinnati, they made the jump. When he was at Notre Dame, they made the jump. And the expectation is, well, year 1, you kind of exceeded expectations. You found a late season magical win against Alabama and you were able to sneak your way into the SEC title game. You really didn't have a chance against that Georgia team. It was a massive blowout, really ugly game. Then in year 2, you lose to a Florida State team that was really, really good and way better than you were. You lose a game at Ole Miss, and then you lose against Alabama. And, and essentially you have a horrible defensive coaching staff that waste a national championship level offense, the best statistical offense in the country, and one that actually matches up with that 2019. When you start to look at the numbers, they match up with what that 2019 team did. So I think that offensively, just because of what you lost, 2 first-round receivers and the Heisman, winning quarterback, they're going to take a step back. Now, does that mean they're going to be one of the worst offenses in the SEC? No, I still think they can be a top 20, top 15 offense in the country, but that's a step back. They did not bring enough talent. And Will, you and I were talking about this offline the other day. The guys that they brought in on the defensive side of the football, I don't think they moved the needle enough. I think that the coaching staff is way better. You got to count on Blake Baker, who's now the highest paid defensive coordinator in college football, to come in with his attacking style of defense and make an impact. But outside of that, I don't think the personnel is good enough to be able to take that jump. And so, what is that jump? Well, the jump is LSU should be contending for a national title. They should be contending for one of those 12 playoff spots. I don't think that this team does that. 9.5 wins, it makes me uneasy. We're going to get into some preview predictions. I think that there is a scenario where Garrett Nussmeier is not that guy. The defense isn't any better. Harold Perkins still just becomes spaced out because he's not being utilized correctly, and you waste the extreme talent that he is. I genuinely believe that you could see a scenario where this team wins 7 games because it's just not good. Now, let's take a look at this schedule, okay? You're going to go to Las Vegas and play USC. You're going to figure out right away all the jokes about USC, all the jokes about Lincoln Riley, they're going to put an offense on the field with Miller Moss. If the offense sputters out there, you blink, and defensively it's not that much better, you're going to get potentially boat raced in that game defensively, like they got boat raced at times last year. You come home and play Nichols. Okay, guys, I'm going to go through the schedule, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. You could lose to USC. You should beat Nichols at home, but then you go to South Carolina. The only thing that you have going for you in that game is the fact that this is a noon kickoff in Columbia. If this was a night game, I'm not even going to the game because it's not a night game. I don't want to waste the time going over there. But where I sit with this is like South Carolina. Is it too early for Beamer ball? Probably. But you can't just waltz into that game and think you can win. We've talked about it. The combination of Lenoris Sellers and Rocket Sanders could be pretty nasty. And if LSU's front 7 is not good, then that is going to be a nightmare type of game for them to have to stop them and get them off the field. Keep going through it. You play UCLA at home. I think UCLA is going to be bad, but we'll see. South Alabama. Then you enter this stretch, okay? You're going to play Ole Miss at home. LSU fans hate talking about Ole Miss because Ole Miss is the little brother of everybody in the old SEC West. Fact of the matter is they're good, and they got some dudes. And Lane Kiffin is a really, really good football coach. So they're going to come ready to play, especially after they lost 2 years ago and kind of ruined their playoff hopes in Death Valley. That's going to be a crazy game. Now, you do get these games at night. That's going to make a big difference. Arkansas, you go to A&M. College Station at time is a house of horrors for LSU. You just can't go in there and guarantee that you're going to win that football game. Then you welcome Alabama. You go to Florida. You do play Vandy, but you get Oklahoma. I think the games that you could pencil in here, fellas, is Nichols. That's one. I think they can beat you. I like their chances to beat UCLA better than South Carolina. So I'm going UCLA, South Alabama. That's 3 wins. And then I'm going Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Florida. That is what? That's 6 wins I've got right there. So 6 wins. If Garrett Nussmeier is not the guy, and look, I mean, I covered the team. I think that he is going to be really, really good. I like the messaging that he has. But my concern is everyone just assumes that when you pass the torch to the next guy, it's going to be fine. The question has to be asked, what if it's not? So I think that 10 wins is a lot to ask out of this team, strictly based on defense. I just don't think that they improved personnel wise. And the big question is going to be, can this coaching staff close the gap to make up for that difference? I don't think so. That's why I could see this team going 9-3, and I think worst case scenario could be 7-5.
Yeah, the two biggest problems on this team are the defense is not going to be good. It's like you said, we talked about, they bring in a number of different guys on defense. Jordan Gilbert at safety, Sean Washington on the defensive line, Gio Paez on the defensive line, Austin Osbury transfers. It looks like he's changing positions. He was a cornerback at Auburn. Looks like they're going to play him at safety. Jair Brown, another transfer guy. Say that again.
He's playing left out. That's what he's going to be playing.
Left out.
But yeah.
On offense, they lose, just generational talents at receiver. So they bring in Xavion Thomas and CJ Daniels from the transfer portal to try to supplement that. But those guys, they're not up to snuff with what they lost. Kyron Lacey is back. That's going to help a lot. Garrett Nussmeier, in the little bit that he's played, has looked good. But the problem is he's not Jaden Daniels. And you cannot ask him to come in and do what Jaden Daniels did to try to lift this team up and have the same or similar success that they had last year. I just don't see it happening. And the problem is going to be on defense. And Bryce, you're exactly right. You're going to find out what that defense is week 1 in Las Vegas. Because if I'm LSU, I'm terrified that Miller Moss is going to pick that secondary apart for dare I say, 500 yards. I mean, Lincoln Riley has done some crazy things with offenses. Miller Moss has shown the little bit he's played as well that he's a playmaker at quarterback. You're going to learn right away, and this thing could get off the rails in a hurry for LSU.
Well, and look, we talked about it, with James Franklin being on the hot seat. If this happens, if you don't win 9 games this year, if you go 8-4, Brian, I don't care that Brian Kelly has a 10-year, $100 million contract. He will be on the hot seat heading into year 4. And you mentioned this, Will. Like, I watched every single week. If this offense blinked, they were in trouble. And that's unfair. And just to give more, kind of take, because I actually know that there's some people watching this right now that are on our Go 24/7 board. They saw my thumbnail and they said, well, we're going to check this out. My take is not that I don't think Garrett Nussmeier can be really good. I just don't think he's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft next year. That's literally what it took to win 9 games last year's defense. Now, a lot of people would say that this defense cannot be as bad as last year. I agree. It was almost hundreds across the board in every statistical category. But in order for this team to go win 9 or 10 games, this defense has to be like a top 60, top 50 unit. And it's more of this. And I'm really going to get into this, Ralph. I was on Twitter Space the other night, and you said, what am I listening to? And I was talking about this in it. The moniker of DBU with LSU, like, we all know that. Ralph, both of you guys grew up Auburn fans. You understand what that means. I grew up a fan of SEC football. Like, we all know what that means. But the farther we get out from them having go dogs,
it's right behind.
That's all I got to say. I'm going to start barking here live on stream. So but the farther we get from them having legitimate defensive backs, that's the concern is how much does that really matter? So, Miller Moss is going to be a great test in week 1. Jackson Dart's going to be very, very good. Jackson Arnold, like I said this on last night's show, I think Oklahoma overperforms. I think LSU underperforms. And that Saturday after Thanksgiving game is a de facto playoff game to be one, the 11th seed. So it'll be interesting. And Gavin, this is a great point. He goes, DBU was Corey Raymond. Corey Raymond's back. They have dropped the ball on multiple elite defensive back recruits so far through this cycle. So it's a concern. Will, you mentioned They've got several guys. They brought in a host of players. I'm scared they can't cover anybody with the secondary. The corners are super young. I like what they have, but can you throw first and second year guys out there and hope that they're going to be able to compete against these pass offenses they're going to face? And look, even to Keith's point here, Lincoln has the uncanny ability to screw the pooch. Agreed. There's just time will tell. I can't sit here and tell you the defense is going to be better. I can just tell you we have to sit and wait, and we'll see during fall camp. But when they suit up that Sunday night in Las Vegas, man, I'm nervous about that. Like that would make me nervous as an LSU fan. I think LSU goes under. I think that they could go 9-3. Is that a disappointment? Is that good enough to get you in the playoff? Like we were talking about Penn State, like very similar team. Depends on who the losses are to. 9-3 could still sneak you in that 12 seed, but overall, man, I mean, I think Brian Kelly's going to be feeling a little bit of pressure coming out of 2024 because all this talk about third year is the year you take a leap. I've been in the camp of 2025 is where it's playoff or bust for LSU. You rebuilt the defensive staff, but we'll go from there. I'm just getting on a soapbox there. So, Ralph, you tell me your thoughts.
Look, I mean, I completely agree with you on the schedule part, really. Your schedule does you no favors whatsoever. And going to Las Vegas, playing a USC team who can air it out with the best of them, coming home playing a nobody. Then you go to South Carolina at 12 o'clock.
That is a straight diss to Ronald Ollie. And I'm ticked off
he
about
was
that.
Nobody in the NFL, okay?
He almost beat Georgia in Kirby Smart's first year. So you just need to hold off.
And then you
never forget Nichols almost beat Georgia. All right, anyways, keep going.
And you go,
but the Citadel did beat Georgia Tech. But yes, keep going.
And then you come home. You go home, and you got UCLA at home, which might be might be there. And then you go home again, back-to-back weeks, and you get to place a Sunbelt team that's pretty good. The last time a Sunbelt team that came to town that was really good. I mean, look at what happened last time.
How about you zoom in on the image, you poverty person? Jeez,
look, dude,
come on.
Look, I tried my best, okay? I had to pull it up a minute ago, and I was waiting for you. I want you to see what it was.
Mobile, Alabama, the armpit of the Dixie State.
Don't say that. But look, I agree though in your statements though. The schedule does no favors. You play a talented Ole Miss team. Arkansas, they're just on the losing end of what was pretty good football for about 4 years. Elko's I think he's gonna be torturous for some things to play at home. You're talking about a guy who has all the ability in the world to build a solid roster and actually a good coach. Yeah. That's no one's joy is going to go in College Station this year. So yeah, I'm going with you on under 9.5. I'm going 7 to 8 wins this year, honestly.
If Mike Elko had Jimbo Fisher's roster, he might have won a playoff game. That's all.
They might have won more than a playoff game.
I don't think you can count out anybody in the SEC.
I agree. I know.
Especially if you're LSU.
I know someone you can count out, Will.
Especially if you're LSU and what their defense is looking like. Arkansas, they could be on an interim head coach going into that game.
Those Bobby Petrino vibes, baby.
Oh,
wouldn't surprise me. We see teams get a boost from an interim head coach. You go to Florida, I don't care. Florida cares about playing LSU. Florida, it's going to be an afternoon or night game. Haven't announced the time yet, obviously, but probably a night game. It's one of the most fun night games in the SEC. It's going to be a great environment no matter what Florida's record is. Just hope nobody throws a shoe. Vanderbilt, if you've been watching the show, you've heard me talk about Vanderbilt. They cannot be overlooked as well. But so you can't count these teams out. I don't think you can count any of them out.
If Vanderbilt enters into Death Valley and wins that game, I don't think you can call Tiger State in Death Valley anymore. I think you lose the brand.
How quick does Vandy build the statue of Clark Lee if they have road wins against Auburn and LSU in 2024?
Immediately.
Lifetime extension.
Do you think they would have it up faster than they had their scoreboard rebuilt?
Probably, because I'm not sure they still have it.
You mean the hanging one that played when they played against Auburn, the one that just hung out there and swung with the wind?
Keith didn't like that comment, Will. Keith, that was a little play on words. Will's very scared for Diego Pavea and them coming into exactly.
Diego.
He's scared. But no, in all seriousness, my disappointment is this team they need to make the playoff in 2024 for recruiting purposes. With a lot of battles they're going up against Texas, Oregon, A&M, Miami. Currently, they're going up with some battles against. So I just think that I don't think they hit 9. I don't think they hit 10 or 11 wins this season. I think that they go 9-3 again, probably with a 10-3 bowl win. And we'll see. I think that LSU's season, and I'm getting ahead of myself here because I know we're doing some preview and predictions. I think that LSU is going to be like the first or second team out. Like they're going to be like the 13th or 14th ranked team in the country at the end of the year. And it's going to be a interesting calls for an interesting offseason heading into 2025.
So
but
you're higher on them than me. I think
it could be worse, though. I agree with you.
I think they're more. They could even be in that 7-5 range. I mean, you're really asking Garrett Nussmeier to be a first-round quarterback, and he's shown flashes for sure, but first-round flashes, I'm not so sure about.
He has the talent. 100% has the talent to do it.
He does.
Can they coach him to perform that way? I don't think so.
It'll be tough. You drop that first game to USC. Can you regroup quick enough to go to South Carolina, which is going to be, like you said, Bryce, even for a noon kickoff, is going to be a great environment, especially if they drop that game to USC. Those fans are going to think that they have a really good shot. So they're going to bring it.